There are a lot of you wondering if the murder of Jordan Morgan is somehow related to the 1987 unsolved shooting death of well-known Richmond nightclub owner Monroe Brock. At first, I was perplexed by this linking of two murders some 35 years apart, but after some research, I understand why this topic is on so many people's minds. According to a March 1987 newspaper article from the Lexington Herald, Brock transferred ownership of the Maverick Club to his wife Dinah in 1983 after the bar and an apartment were raided by local and state police, who seized unspecified amounts of drugs, weapons, and cash, in addition to electronic poker games and slot machines. A March 1983 article from the Courier-Journal quoted Police Chief Walker Howell as saying 8 to 10 arrests were expected as a result of the raids. Despite the seeming severity of Monroe Brock's charges from the March 83 raids, he later pleads guilty to promoting first-degree gambling and receives essentially a slap on the wrist, a $500 fine with a suspended sentence. Interestingly, in June of 1983, Brock would be granted immunity by the feds to testify against Richmond officials in a bribery trial. Less than 2 years after that, his brother Clyde is arrested in Laurel County on charges involving the sale of alcohol to unauthorized people in Dry Territory, along with 2 others. Who would have tipped off the ABC? And in another 2 years or less, Monroe Brock would be dead. With the ownership of the Maverick Club under her belt by 1983, Dinah Brock forms 3 new corporations in 1984 with Wesley Morgan, Jordan Morgan's daddy, according to records with the Secretary of State. One of those corporations was Morgan Brock, Inc., doing business as Bluegrass Liquors. The corporations were dissolved over a course of 3 years, in 1987, the year of Brock's death, 1988, and 1989, respectively. I had the opportunity to speak with Dinah back in August of 2017. At the time, I was very excited. I was certain I had found an important clue to solving the mystery of her husband's death. I was researching the decapitation murder of Betty Carnes in Barberville when I discovered Donnie Baker, a main character in the Carnes murder case, was directly connected to the Maverick Club. He and 2 other men with criminal backgrounds had formed a corporation with the same name about a year after Monroe Brock's murder. I had to ask Dinah, was she aware of this? Donnie Baker was a very close colleague, you might even say henchman, of Vance Mills. Mills was described in one FBI file as a millionaire residing in Barberville, the owner of several legitimate businesses and several aircrafts, who was using the aircraft to fly to Pueblo, Colorado, at which point he is buying cocaine by the kilo and distributing it primarily to the area of St. Louis, with lesser quantities going to the southeastern U.S. Mills is called a significant trafficker and that the source of the cocaine is identical to a top 10 fugitive. Dinah told me she did not know these men had incorporated the name of Monroe's bar, her bar, with the Secretary of State. In my naivety, I pressed her, what would make these men so sure they were going to get their hands on your bar that they would go so far to incorporate and file with the Secretary of State? She did say some out-of-towners had made an offer at one time, but she refused them. She said maybe the Messer names sounded familiar. Could she take my number, talk to her attorney at the time, and call me back? She was wary. Probably to be expected when a stranger calls you out of the blue with a potential clue to a 35-year-old mystery that's probably haunted you since, right? Within 24 hours of that phone conversation, I had 2 big goons in a too small car, sitting outside my home, casing my property, and overall making me say, "What the?" I was very thankful for my very visible surveillance system that day. I never did hear back from Dinah, but I've never forgot the timing of those goons' arrival after our phone call. I tell myself it's just a coincidence. But the whole thing made my brain itch. There was a reason Donnie Baker and those men were so confident they were going to get that bar from Monroe Brock's widow. Another itch. Dinah and Monroe Brock's attorney at the time was John Sword, a crooked-ass lawyer from Richmond. John Sword continued to be Dinah's attorney after Monroe's death. After talking to Dinah, I later discovered John Sword was in the nursing home business with Vance Mills. The same Vance Mills that Donnie Baker, incorporator of the Second Mysterious Maverick Club, worked for. The same Vance Mills, the FBI says, along with others, was involved in a joint venture to import large quantities of cocaine from Mexico to the United States. I want to ask Dinah again, are you sure you can't remember anything about Vance Mills' colleagues being involved in this mysterious second incorporation of your club? And there was one more question I wish I had asked Dinah about the night her husband was shot. Weren't you scared to take those 2 young kids out in the night, not knowing if that sniper was going to shoot you too? A lot of people ask me why I continue my research, saying most of the time the people involved are dead anyway. To that I say, not all of them. My gut tells me that even after 35 years, someone is still alive who has a very keen interest in making sure the murder of Monroe Brock remains unsolved.